Welcome to When One Thing Leads to Another, a podcast that takes you freewheeling down the great internet rabbit hole of trivia.
Each week we pick a starting point, and then who knows where all the twists, turns and tangents will take us. But we'll be sure to unearth a treasure trove of frivolous facts that will be as fascinating as they are, well, useless.
When One Thing Leads to Another is produced and presented by us, Helen and Bill Rich. Our theme music is by Justin Mitchell.
This is episode 4, University Challenge. Before we start this week's episode, we should explain that at the time of recording, the original question master of the TV programme University Challenge, Bamber Gascoigne, was alive and well. So we refer to him in the present tense. However, a few days later, dear old Bamber unfortunately passed away. Now don't worry, all will become clear. But in the meantime, here's your starter for 10.
So I'd like to share the little, maybe slightly embarrassing for me story when the other night we were doing our usual Monday night quiz night routine.
Classic.
Where we were watching University Challenge, followed by Only Connect.
That's middle age for you, baby.
Yeah, it's what you kids have got to look forward to. And you asked me if I thought the original question master on University Challenge, Bamber Gascoigne, was still alive.
I remember posing that as a question.
And I think I actually laughed in your face.
You did?
Because I thought
it.
that was a ridiculous question because he was quite clearly dead and had most probably died at least 20 years ago. And then, of course, we Googled it, and, of course, Bamber Gascoigne is very much alive and well and living in Richmond at the grand old age of 88. And that is where today's rabbit hole begins.
Okay.
I didn't even have to dig very deep before I found a nugget of interest in the house Bamber inherited when his grandaunt Mary Innes Kerr, Duchess of Roxburgh, died.
Blimey.
In 2014. Oh yeah, he's from good stock.
I was going to say, that is, I mean, give me that name again. How posh do you want to be?
Yeah, Mary Innes Kerr, Duchess of Roxburgh. She died in 2014.
Right.
And she owned a house called West Horsley Place, and it's a Grade 1 listed building just east of Guildford in Surrey.
Okay.
And she left the house to Bamber Gascoigne.
Good for Bamber Gascoigne.
Yeah, and he's since transferred the ownership of the house to the West Horsley Place Trust, which holds guided tours and open days and allows the house to be used for filming, amongst other things. In fact...
Okay, I feel a fact coming in.
If you watch the BBC comedy Ghosts, you'll know the house very well, because that Button House is Bamber Gascoigne's pile of bricks.
Well, how about that? I have found out that when he was a student at university, Bamber wrote a college review in his second year, which was seen by the British theatre producer Michael Codron. Now, he liked it enough to put it on the West End as a musical called, check this out, Share My Lettuce.
Share My Lettuce?
Yeah, Share My Lettuce. And this was in 1957. And what is more, Maggie Smith and Kenneth Williams starred in it.
Matron. Ghosts. So I thought we'll go down a little tangent of ghosts. If you're not sure of the premise of Ghosts, it's set in crumbling country mansion Button House, where the ghosts of people who've died there over the centuries reside together for eternity, and their lives, or rather their afterlives, are forever changed when a young couple unexpectedly inherit the derelict house and they move in. And one of the characters from that show, one of the ghosts, is trouserless Tory MP, Julian Fawcett.
Yeah, he does that well.
Who died while having sex with a fellow MP at a fundraiser at the house in 1993.
Yeah.
And he was in death as he was in life, as he reminisces at one point about how he was studying at Cambridge in July 1969 during the first Apollo moon landing, and he missed it because he was having a moon landing of his own, which apparently is a threesome. Anyway,
we digress.
Simon Farnaby,
he plays
who is brilliant.
Yeah,
he
he's
also
funny.
plays the character in The Detectorist, doesn't he? The Simon and Garfunkel duo.
That's him.
They're brilliant guy. Did you know?
Go on.
He co-wrote Paddington 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, the film that made me bawl my eyes out, and I'm pretty sure you welled up as well.
No, not a chance.
He co-wrote it with Paul King. Sadly not.
No.
Sadly not the Paul King of the mulleted 80s Coventry band King.
That's a shame.
Now this, you're going to love this, what I'm going to tell you next.
Go
this
on
is really
then.
interesting. So I had a little look into Paddington 2.
Yeah.
Until May 2021, it had an approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes of 100%.
Right.
Based on 164 reviews.
Okay.
Now, do you
Not
know
bad.
about the review system and how it works on Rotten Tomatoes?
No, I don't.
Okay, so the Rotten Tomatoes score is based on the opinions of hundreds of film and television critics.
Oh.
There's a team of curators.
Oh, I thought it was the public. No.
No, so did I.
Oh, okay.
There's a team of curators whose job it is to read thousands of movie and TV reviews weekly and note down whether they are negative or positive, fresh or rotten. In 2021, Citizen Kane still had 100% score after 80 years. But a negative review from 1941 was discovered. So it was changed to 99%. So for a brief time, Paddington 2 was considered a better film than Citizen Kane.
Wow.
But in May last year, Paddington 2 suffered the same fate.
Oh.
When an old negative review from 2017 was unearthed, and that too dropped to 99%.
I wonder if that person was a relative of Orson Welles. Talking of Orson Welles, of course, he famously won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay for Citizen Kane in 1941. Fast forward nearly 30 years, and Orson Welles is making another film called The Other Side of the Wind in 1970. However, the film hit the skids with finance and legal and all sorts of problems, so the film was never finished. And in fact, Orson Welles couldn't pay his cinematographer, a bloke called Cary Graver. So, as payment, he gave Graver his Oscar that he'd won in 1941.
Wow.
And then decades later, Graver tried to sell that award.
Of course. Well, you would, wouldn't you?
Well, you would.
I would.
And finally, in 2011, he did sell the award for, go on, how much do you reckon?
I have absolutely no idea.
Try $861,000 US.
Not too shabby. Just going back to Paddington 2, David Heyman. Have you heard of David Heyman?
I can't say I have.
Well, he produced Paddington 2.
Yeah.
He also produced all the Harry Potter films. But more interestingly for me, he in 1968 he was page boy at the wedding of his godmother.
Go on.
Diana Dors.
Hey, yeah. Diana Dors.
Diana Dors. She was a huge presence in our
certainly was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know her real name was Diana Fluck?
How are you spelling that?
Fluck.
Wow, how about
Diana
that?
Fluck. And when she got into films, she changed her name
to
her maternal grandmother's maiden name.
Right.
And she later commented, "They asked me to change my name. I suppose they were afraid that if my real name, Diana Fluck, was up in lights and one of the lights blew." Which I thought was funny. So she made many films, of course.
Famously.
One of which was called Lady Godiva Rides Again.
Right.
And the film was made in 1951.
Okay.
And has uncredited appearances from two interesting people.
Go on.
First,
Go on.
Joan Collins.
Right.
Right, it's
nice.
interesting, isn't it? And the second, Ruth Ellis.
Ruth. Oh!
Now, do you know who Ruth Ellis was?
Well, Ruth Ellis was the
last
woman to be hung.
Yep.
And because she murdered someone, and the bullet holes, am I getting this right? The bullet holes are still visible in the pub in Hampstead.
You're absolutely right. Yes, yeah. Ruth Ellis, yes. So she was the last woman to be hanged in the UK in 1955. On the 10th of April 1955, at the age of 28, she shot and killed her lover, David Blakely, outside the Magdala pub in Hampstead.
Yeah.
And was immediately arrested by an off-duty policeman. And she was hanged 3 months later on the 13th of July. She worked on this film, Lady Godiva Rides Again, in 1951 with Diana Dors, and they became friends.
Oh, that's
apparently.
That's some great facts.
Yeah.
Right, talking of Diana Dors, I have found an absolute gem about her on the internet.
Ooh.
In her later life, she confided in her son Mark that she had squirreled away 2 million quid in various bank accounts under false names so as to swerve paying any income tax.
Naughty girl.
And she gave him a piece of paper on which was written the details of said bank accounts so that he could access the money should she ever die. But she had thrown a spanner in the works because she had written the details as a complex code.
Ooh.
Yeah, apparently she loved puzzles and riddles and the like, right?
Don't we all?
And therefore the details were indecipherable.
Oh.
So when she did eventually die, her son Mark went to a code-breaking specialist company.
I bet he did.
And they were finally able to decode the bank account details.
Woo.
However, these details only gave the surnames and geographical locations of the bank accounts, which was not enough information for him to access the money. And it came to light that Diana Dors had given the rest of the bank details, presumably sort codes and account numbers and all the rest of it, again as a complex code to her then husband, Alan Lake.
Bloody hell, that's very complicated.
Yeah, but he was so distraught at her death, he committed suicide soon afterwards.
What?
And this piece of paper containing the codes has never been found. So if Diana Dors was telling the truth, there's a couple of million quid, probably a damn sight more actually now, sitting untouched in various bank accounts around the country.
Wow. Staying with Diana Dors,
Right.
you probably knew that she was also known for hosting adult parties. Did you know that?
No, I don't think I was aware
Which
of that.
were exactly what they sounded like.
Okay.
And former lover of Diana Dors and party guest Bob Monkhouse
Yeah.
said of the parties,
Go on.
the awkward part about an orgy is that afterwards you're not too sure who to thank.
Good old Bob.
Good old Bob. Another thing that she did, which I'm sure you know, in fact, it was one of the last things she did, her last on-screen performances was in the Prince Charming video by Adam Ant.
Yes.
Here's an interesting fact.
Go on.
Did you know that in 2010,
Go on.
disgraced former TV darling Rolf Harris
Yeah.
claimed on Danny Baker's radio show on BBC 5 Live that an out-of-court settlement had been reached with a large sum of royalties received after a musicologist found that the song Prince Charming,
Right.
it was musically identical to Harris's 1965 song War Canoe.
Wow.
War Canoe. War Canoe.
War canoe?
War Canoe.
War canoe can splash along, can sing the song we know we kept thee.
I'll briefly touch on this because I don't want to spend any more time than necessary on Harris. But Timey Kangaroo Down Sport, obviously it made the top 10 in the UK in 1960.
It did.
He offered the 4 Australian session musicians 10% of the royalties.
Right.
But they turned it down thinking that the song would be a flop.
Oh.
Instead, they took a fixed fee of £7 each.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they certainly live to regret that.
And did you know that George Martin came along in 1963 and re-recorded Timey Kangaroo Down and made it a hit in the US? And that there's a recording of the Beatles singing backing vocals on it for their BBC TV show From Us to You.
Get out of town.
Yeah.
Well, that is incredible.
Yeah. Someone else who recorded Timey Kangaroo Down Sport,
Go on.
Connie Francis.
Connie Francis.
Oh, come on, you must know Connie Francis.
Oh.
Lipstick on your collar. Stupid Cupid, stop picking on me.
Oh, yeah, I know that tune.
Connie
Okay.
Francis, okay, so real name Connie Francanero. She was from an Italian Jewish family,
Yeah.
and she would record her hits in different languages,
Okay.
which I think is a genius idea, because then you have hits all over the world.
Yeah.
So she recorded her hits in 15 different languages.
15,
So
wow.
she was hugely popular in Europe.
Yeah, that was a smart move.
So she spoke anyway. She spoke Italian, Yiddish, and Spanish.
Yeah, okay.
But all the other languages, she had to learn the lyrics phonetically. So she
Okay.
had all these hits all over Europe.
Oh,
which I
that's
think
interesting.
It's a really great idea.
It
So
is a good idea.
that got me on to
Yeah.
who else recorded their hits in different languages.
Oh, well, I think Bowie's done a few, hasn't he?
He famously has done, yes. The Beatles.
The Beatles did.
Because, they spent obviously 2 years in Hamburg. Well, they spent loads of time in Hamburg.
Yeah.
So they picked up plenty of the local dialect to make their songs sound vaguely authentic.
Right.
I Want to Hold Your Hand.
In German.
In German.
Go
Can you have a stab?
Not without being massively racist.
Komm, gib mir deine Hand.
Okay, good. Yeah.
She Loves You. You could probably have a guess at that.
No, I don't know.
Sie liebe dich.
Oh, Sie liebe dich.
Yeah. Johnny Cash recorded Ring of Fire in Spanish, and it's been said that his accent was awful.
¿Cuál fuego es el amor?
I read a quote from someone that said Johnny probably thought Espanol was a breed of dog. But yeah, of course, David Bowie famously recorded Heroes in German. Helden. And, well, did you know he was inspired to write the song by seeing Tony Visconti embracing his lover by the Berlin Wall? So the song tells the story of two lovers, one from East Germany and one from West Germany.
Yeah.
And his performance on June the 6th, 1987 at the Reichstag has been considered a catalyst to the later fall of the Berlin Wall, which seems a little bit, oh, come on now, that's pushing it. But in fact, after his death in January 2016, the German government thanked David Bowie for helping to bring down the wall.
How about that? David Bowie won the Cold War.
Thank you for listening to When One Thing Leads to Another, a podcast produced and presented by us, Helen and Bill Rich.
If you've enjoyed this episode, then please rate and review us on wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe, and that way you'll never miss an episode.
We'd also love to hear from you, especially if we've got any of our information wrong, or you have some more fascinating facts about something we've talked about, or you could even suggest a subject for our starting point.
Our email address is whenonethingleadstoanother@gmail.com.
A massive thank you to Justin Mitchell for letting us use his music as our theme song. It's a track called Homo Erectus, taken from his fantastical album called The Garden of Earthly Delights, which is available to buy from bandcamp.com.
Thanks also to Acast for hosting us.
Join us next week for another episode of When One Thing Leads to Another.
Please note that all facts have been found on the internet and therefore we cannot vouch for their veracity.